Hey guys, and CS Fan 001 here for episode 9 of Fallout Recipes, Fallout Cookbook Recipes, whatever you want to call it. Today's recipe is Xander Root Miso Soup, kind of, and I'll get into why I say kind of in a minute. I was able to replace the kombu and bonito ingredients with 2 wings of a bloatfly and the shell of a fog crawler. These add a real kick to the broth, I'm sure they do. This will give us +2 endurance for 1 hour. It's an easy difficulty recipe that takes 15 minutes of prep, 45 minutes of cooking, makes 4 servings. Apparently does quite well with braised Deathclaw steak. I'm going to have to try that out at some point then, because that actually sounds pretty good. As for the ingredients, we need 4 cups of cold water, which I've already put in a pot because they're going to need to go in a pot soon anyway. 1 piece of kombu, dried kelp. Half a cup of dried bonito flakes, 3 dried shiitake mushrooms, half a medium turnip that has been thinly sliced, or in my case, kind of thinly sliced, 1 scallion that has been chopped, and 2 tablespoons of white miso paste. Now, I say kind of miso soup, Xander Root Miso Soup, because I had a lot of issues finding these ingredients, and I either had to substitute some or couldn't even find some of them. Because the only good grocery places around me are Kroger, and they did not have kombu at all. It wasn't even on the website, so no kombu, but I substituted that with some seaweed, which I like seaweed, so I'm not going to have an issue with that. Half a cup of dried bonito flakes. 1, I've never heard of that before this recipe, and 2, apparently Kroger has not either, because it also was not available at all at Kroger. The scallion, they didn't have actual scallions, but they had a lot of different kinds of onions. So scallions are basically just sort of a type of onion, sort of a type of green onion, or they're closer to that. So I substituted this with like a more mild sweet onion. I think that's going to be okay for this. It looks like, as best I can tell, it's going to be okay. And the white miso paste, they said they had it. I spent like 10 minutes trying to find it with no luck. So I ended up substituting that with basically some kind of soup mix that's miso soup mix, because it's the closest thing I could find to it. So is this recipe going to go well? Probably not, but we're still going to try. So the first step is to prepare the soup base by combining the water, kombu, and bonito flakes into a large pot over medium-high heat and bring that to a simmer for 3 minutes. Alright guys, so we have the water on here. We're going to add in the kombu, which in this case is seaweed, because reasons. And then that's going to simmer for 3 minutes, at which point we remove the kombu and add our 3 dried mushrooms. And then they have to simmer for 30 minutes. So it's going to take a little while to get through that, but it'll be on lower heat. So I'll be back in a few moments. Okay guys, it's been about 3 minutes of the seaweed simmering in there, and I can actually smell it, so it's working, I guess. So let's go ahead and remove the seaweed. I can actually smell it. It's actually like semi-melted, which I guess means I kind of did it right, I guess. Now we're going to add in approximately 3 mushrooms. So I'm just going to grab sort of a handful of mushrooms. And drop those in. That's approximately 3 mushrooms. Actually, no, it needs a little bit more than that. There we go. That's 3. So now that the mushrooms are in, we're going to reduce the heat to low and simmer for half an hour and then strain the broth. So I will be back in half an hour. Okay guys, now that the soup has been on for half an hour, we're going to strain it into a couple of containers. Should probably hold this so it doesn't spill out, because I don't know if it's going to all fit in one container. Oh, you can actually, it has changed colors into soup color. Oh, that actually fits very well, surprisingly. Okay then, that's quite surprising. So it says the soup broth can be stored for up to 2 weeks, or no, excuse me, up to 1 week in the refrigerator. But we're not going to be doing that because we are immediately stepping into the next step of making the actual soup. So first I'm going to need to clear out the pot and then get the heat started up again. And then we put the broth back in, just the broth, not the mushrooms and stuff, in order to combine for the next step. Alright, the soup is simmering over medium to high heat, or the broth is, I mean. So the next step is to add the turnips and cook for 2 to 3 minutes or until tender. Then after that, we have to add the scallions and cook that for 1 more minute before we do the last couple steps. So let's go ahead and add in the slightly thinly sliced turnips. And we leave that in there for 2 to 3 minutes. Alright guys, it's been about 3 minutes, so we're going to add in the onions now. In this case, it's onions instead of scallions, because like I said, I didn't see scallions at the store, so we're going to go with just regular old sort of mild to sweet onions, because that's what I have access to. So now that that's in, we cook it for a minute, reduce the heat to low, whisk in the miso paste, which in this case is more soup mix, and serve it. So it's been about another minute since I couldn't find the miso paste. We're going to reduce this to low so it can begin to simmer. And then we're going to whisk in the fake miso powder soup with tofu chunks in it. And there's not a whole lot in this container, so I'm just going to take what I have here and call the day. This recipe was just a disaster in every possible way because I couldn't find half the ingredients. I'm actually going to be quite curious to see if this is even edible. I can't imagine it's going to be the worst thing in the world. I mean, I'm not a big miso soup person in general anyway. I'm actually a bit interested now to try this, and it's going to have to cool too, so I'm more than anything just going to consume the broth. I'm not a big onion or especially not a turnip fan. I don't like turnips at all. So we're going to let that simmer for a few minutes, and after it's simmered for a few minutes, I'm going to clean up a little bit and then serve it. Alright guys, that is the finished soup product. It actually looks and smells quite fine, actually. Better than I was expecting. Now I still don't think I'm going to consume much of this, but we're still going to be giving it a try because that's the goal of these videos, is to try these recipes that I probably should not be making at my level of cooking experience. You know, it doesn't have a bad taste to it at all. It tastes just like straight water. I feel like the recipe probably needed less water than what we have. It literally just tastes like straight water with just a little bit of flavor to it. I mean, I know that I didn't have all the correct ingredients and stuff for this one, so naturally it wasn't going to be perfect, but I definitely think that it would have been better if it maybe had a little bit less water in it. So that's just my opinion on it. So definitely a little more watery than it probably needed to be. It could have definitely had a little more flavor, but it's actually, the flavor is actually not bad at all. I gotta say, the flavor tastes a lot like what you get at like a Japanese hibachi place. I mean, that's technically what this is, just not made very well. So the flavor is actually fairly spot on. It's just too watery. So if I ever wanted to make this again, which I have no intention to, I would recommend less water, because I think that that's a little too much water in it. I think it probably could have used about half as much water, and that would have definitely brought out the flavor of the vegetables. But honestly, it wasn't as bad as I expected. Like I said, it's just really watery. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 9. I think that episode 10 is probably going to be remaking an old recipe, the Nuka-Cola, as like an anniversary edition video, and now that I have the proper materials to do it. And then I can have the Nuka-Cola syrup needed to make a number of other recipes that I want to make. So that's part of the reason. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys for episode 10.